actually, we just started something completely different this week, where we have a superhero.
Oh, wait.
Oh, I'm muted. Now I'm muted. Haha. Okay. That we have the superhero theme, and what we decided to do was, as opposed to having them battle a boss, they are actually battling each other, and they have to write everything as an explanation. And so right now they're trying to save 2K geckos from their impairment of vision that they're having because they just put new street lights in, so they're having trouble seeing their prey. And so with the final discussion, the heroes have to figure out or explain how to save them through what they've learned about them, and the villains have to figure out how to allow the geckos to no longer be around. And what we're doing is we're taking the writing rubric, and every point they meet, we're averaging out their score so that the heroes or the villains will win, and that side gets the XP, and it's all or nothing. So it's just kind of a different way to think about it.
Any hands? Looking for hands. Jacob, I'm coming, Jacob. Oh, wait, keep moving. There we go.
All right. Well, I like what you said about the villains and the heroes, but my kids have brought up so many times that they want to be the bad guys. We haven't had a bad guy, but I think pretty much there might be a few people who would stay on the good side in my class, but I have a lot of killers, so they would join. So I still haven't figured out how to do that. I started out the year doing boss battles, basically as just like glorified Jeopardy. I actually used your mystery box game. And then the last time I tried to do it more how it was described in the book and things I've seen on Twitter, where it's like they're actually up and moving, and I have pictures of the bosses, and it was a little crazy and went a little too long. But I think I'm gonna go back this next time for just like guilds battling each other, and then hopefully regroup for the next level to be going after a boss. So we'll see.
Oh, I'm coming. Unmute.
All right. I'm Diana Lynn. Obviously, I put my name in wrong, but this is my first year doing gamification for the whole year, so I'm a little bit slower, easing my way into it. And our boss battles are kind of an elongated warm-up. We do them at the beginning to kind of review what we've done in the past, but it's interesting because every time we do them, I've used dice. And they roll to see how many points they get if they get it right, and they determine what the battle line is based on how many items that they have. They get like 3 bathroom, we call them waste disposals because I'm a science teacher. They get 3 waste disposals at the beginning of each grading, so that kind of sets the battle lines. But the interesting thing that happened today, I was like, yes, I'm doing something right, is when I brought out the alphabet dice, because I wanted them to give a structure and a function of the body systems that we've reviewed based on their dice. And the minute I brought out the dice, they were like, yes, a boss battle. So even though, it's really short, none of my boss battles have been more than like, I think the longest was maybe 15 minutes, but probably most of them are about 10. It was interesting to see that excitement, even though I wasn't planning it to be, and suddenly, oh yes, it is a boss battle. And so it was just kind of fun to throw it in there on the fly, even though that wasn't what I was really planning.
Nice. Similarly for me, when I did boss battles the first time this year, it was really fun to see the kids' reactions. The first day I did it, it was nothing too fancy. I just had like a printed out sheet of paper that described the boss. And then I asked a bunch of questions, and they rolled dice to fight the boss. But like literally the next day, kids were like, are we going to fight another boss? Which was just crazy because it's just like a quiz basically.
Yeah.
and it was super low tech, and yet they still absolutely loved it.
My bosses have always been the things in my room, like my skeleton, my torso model, my bearded dragon. When my principal comes in, she's the boss. And so that's how I kept it, just to keep it simple. But they really like it, and they know each one of them has a different power that they have to overcome.
Love it. Anybody else got a boss battle? All right, here we go.
Mine's a question.
Sure.
Teach ceramics, and they already know the terminology. They already know, it's not like we have quizzes. I mean, it's making, but a lot of the rewards and the things that I see people using revolve around boss battles, and I think my kids would enjoy it. I'm just trying to figure out how to incorporate them into a course where we don't really have content tests, because their content is making, basically.
Sure. I think oh, you got somebody down there. Hang on. All right.
So, I'm Mariana Garcia, so just, yeah. But I have a semi answer to that question, because I teach mostly using PBL, and what I do is my boss battles are the projects themselves. And so there's no question and answer, but rather they build the boss, or they take apart the boss by completing, kind of like by fulfilling the requirements of whatever the project is. So that's one way that I do it, because yeah, like you, I seldom have like quizzes, or the quizzes are more, actually what I do for quizzes are just like tiny little mastery quests, what have you, go and take that quiz. But the actual boss battle is the project itself.
Does that help?
Well, my projects are actually the quests, but I do like the idea that she said that I could have. I'm still trying to figure it out, because I set up all my projects as the quests.
Yes.
So, and they already know that, but I think that I can't remember your name, because I know you said you.
Mariana, it's okay. It's okay. But yeah.
Just an idea, and I don't know if this will actually work for you, but if I remember right, there's like elements and stuff that they have to do as you do that. I'm wondering if you could have a boss battle where they have to transfer that to something else. So like you give them Legos, or you give them just something bizarre that they don't normally work with, and they have to put that element into whatever that bizarre thing is to see if they can actually transfer the skill and do it in a set amount of time. You could do that as a boss battle and see who shows the best transfer of that element of art that you've been teaching.
That's a great idea.
What about, I know Stephanie and I were talking the other day, or she was even talking today, about some kind of like a flip on snake oil, where they have to take an item and like pitch it to the boss and try to sell it to the boss, or I'm not sure what your theme is. So like maybe they have to take their item that they've made and pitch it to something to win points that theirs is the best.
That's a good idea too. Mine, they have magically been transported back in time, and they have to help the magic potter lady with her magic clay and, all this kind of stuff. So
if they have to pitch it, then maybe items could go against each other to restrict talk, or restrict the number of words, or restrict things that they could use to pitch it to the boss, and then whoever pitches it the best wins the battle. And you could have different bosses that understand different languages, or understand different techniques, or have different points of view on different pottery styles.
You could let those with the most points actually determine what materials they wanted to use as they're pitching it. And if you don't have as many points, you don't get the first choice. So there's more of a challenge to it.
Or the bosses have some, artistic snobbiness that you have to overcome to pitch your pottery. I don't know.
You have to use art speak.
Who knows, right? Or maybe they have to talk in an accent because that particular artist or boss likes flair, I don't know.
Great ideas.
Love it. Nick, you had your hand up here.
Yeah. So your questions could be centered also around like the process in which they have to go through to do that certain type of art, like the techniques that they use, or research on how to, research skills. So all your content for the questions could be centered around the process or design thinking if you use that in your classroom. But as far as boss battles, how I use it, just kind of a different way, is I use Kahoot. And so I explain the boss, and the boss, give them backstory, how many health points that boss has. And then then they play Kahoot with the questions and say they have to get to, 10,000 points to beat the boss. So it's just kind of simple way. So if they get above 10,000 on their final score in Kahoot, then they have defeated that boss, and then they get extra XP for that.
Nice. Noah here, let's see, unmute.
First of all, I really love your guys' creativity. We're like a power source, and we can piggyback on each other's things. So I really like this creative spirit. And also one more thing about the Kahoot. I don't remember your name, sorry. But there's an Israeli app called Triventi that I'll write it in the chat. And it allows collaborate quiz making. So every student or group of students can send their own question to the class's quiz. And they don't see anybody else's yet. And you can, of course, moderate it and erase questions and everything you need to know. So it's called Triventi. I'll write it in the chat. And one question, or I would like to use your brainstorming powers, is what do I do if I can't translate boss battles? Like well, it doesn't translate well. It's like in the army and all that. So I can't use the word battle. And my theme is the jungle. And each player type has a different animal. So I would like your brainstormings what to call it instead of a boss battle.
Maybe an encounter, like call it like a tiger encounter, or I think that sounds equally ominous.
Yeah, but an encounter is like I don't remember the word in English, like a casual thing, and it's not something you have to like prepare for and know your stuff and be your best and all that. And Melissa said something in the chat.
Anybody with their hands on this one?
Conquest as an option. Creature conquest. Council, right. A lot of great ideas. So I'm looking for something that's really like a battle, that you have to win it. You gotta be in it to win it, and not just like give advice and stuff like that. Challenge, yeah. Great. Yeah, struggle. Like struggling the jungle. They have to like overcome like powers of natures and stuff like that. Nice. What's a face-off? How do you translate? Like, how do you explain that?
All right, Brian.
I was just going to say, like, for my boss battle stuff, I've only done that one unit. I'm working on another unit for this semester, like my version 2.0. But I ended up having a little more tangible things where I got the like Ninja Star suction cups, and I'd have kids go through their formative assessments and however many questions they got correct, or were able to show their work well, or used cards to kind of pump up the power of their Ninja Stars. So then every group at the end of the class period took turns throwing them at one of the bosses that I made. So one of the last ones we did was the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. I put it up on the board, and I put some critical hit spots on it, so they could go for the gold and try and get those bonus points. And they got into it so much so that I had to start offering bonus damage on trick shots, where they bend over and like whip it between their legs and stuff like that, trying to hit the target. But just something a little different spin on some of the things that I was reading. Get them up out of their seat and throwing stuff around the room.
So I have to add, just because you brought up Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I made a new item this week. So they get their, in my game, all their items are held in the baseball card holders. And so they only can hold 9 items. We're, into the second semester, many students have ran out of space.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have this item called, now I'm blanking on the name of it. The Upside Down.
Yeah.
And it allows them to use, if they have it, they can use the backside of the binder. So now they can have 18 items.
It's awesome.
If they have the Upside Down. So yeah, that's a fun one. Maybe we should move on to another question here from, I guess we can generate our own questions, but some of the ones that were written in. Let's see. This one says they're getting ready to start gamifying a space unit. I have a list of possible conflicts, but I still don't know how to introduce them and resolve them. That's Goldie Spencer wrote that. All right, Noah?
So I'm sorry to be like academic, but this brings me to the discussion of gamification and game-based learning. So if you want to just like gamify it, you could use your the tasks that you use normally and just give them like XP and currency and whatever reward system you have, but you use, in my opinion, you can use the same old thing that you used. But if you want to really be game-based learning and have the game teach them what they need to learn, I think we need to get more into your theme, like see what the characters are and what their dilemmas are and how we can elaborate that. So if I can get clarification on that, then I can think about it.
So I think they're just saying I think a lot of people struggle when they haven't gamified yet about applying theme to their course. Like they're typically, I would say, people ask me questions about this all the time. I think there's some trepidation to sort of launching this sort of fantasy world, whatever it is. And in this case, space, this teacher's whatever, an English teacher, and she's reading Shakespeare and she's like, how do I introduce these conflicts in space? Are the kids going to care? And as some of you who have done gamification realize, to introduce a conflict is just come in and be like, oh, our spaceship's under attack. We need to, answer these questions. We need to read the next chapter and annotate. I think it goes a lot easier than we realize, once we get started. Introducing these conflicts can happen in a myriad of ways. Does anybody else have kind of their take on it? Brandon here, coming to get you there.
Well, actually, I got a question just to piggyback off what you were talking about. I had modified or heavily tried to theme my content. So I'm a chemistry teacher. And so we were doing types of chemical reactions, and I would rename that spell casting, right? So then the kids are learning different types of spells, and they linked to double replacement and single replacement, so on and so forth. But I was getting flack from not a lot of kids, but a few kids that made it more confusing. Using the theme to kind of rebrand those things, they were having trouble understanding the difference between the two. And sure. I don't know if it was those types of students who normally don't do well, and it was a scapegoat to say, oh, look, I can't understand this because you're calling it spell casting instead of chemical reactions, or if maybe I was just too heavy-handed with the theme. Does that make sense?
Sure. I had that for what it was worth. I had that when I first started gamifying, and I called my tests battles.
Right.
And then there were some kids that were like, well, I didn't know I had to study for the tests because you just had it on the board, battle this Friday or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I was too crass, but being, 6th grade teacher, I just said, we've talked about that.
This is what it is.
This is what it is.
Right.
And,
right.
Like any other requirement, we wouldn't
Sure.
allow them to say, I didn't understand that the paper was due Friday because you just wrote paper Friday.
Right.
No, you know that.
Okay.
But maybe if you're replacing vocab terms that they're supposed to know with other vocab terms, maybe it's a
Sure.
double layer of vocab.
Be a different story. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem. Hang on, I got Jacob here.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I just wanted to say with themes and stuff, we were talking about, we got to come up with an idea to talk about on the show. Themes, I don't know if you've done a lot of them on themes, but I started out with like one theme, which was kind of generic based off your book, like we're sailing, we're pirates. And so then we landed on different islands every unit, and each island was its own theme. So I could basically make
really change it up.
Yeah, whenever I wanted. So doing a whole bunch of different themes is like what I like, because whatever they're into at that moment, I can kind of just make a big thing about it. So
no, that's awesome. I mean, I think similarly, like why there's such a popular show with like Star Trek, right? That each planet they go to could
well, now we're in space. We left the islands. We started going. We went to a cloud city, and now we're in space. So we're just all over the place.
But there's like a lot of freedom in design in that, because then you can really turn the game on its head at any point, because your game can be anywhere.
That's pretty cool.
Anybody else have something to say on that one, or should we jump to the next question? All right, no objections. Next question. Let's see here. No, that's not really about gamification. Okay, this one asks, this is Brian Miller asking, how to give out items to students. Do you have a system of how you determine what cards to give kids when they complete a side quest or win a challenge/battle? Do you pick from a random pile of cards? Are certain leveled cards together?
Okay, I'm still unmuted, so I have to say this. This is really cool.
Boom.
So I'm sorry, I have to real quick. I give them out random most of the time, but for my battle items, when we have like a battle and they have, they can play cards against each other, I just got a Google Home Mini, and I have to warn you, it's going to go off right now, but I have them say, okay, Google, add something to my shopping list. What do you want to add? And then they'll say, okay, Asia wants to buy dark magic. And then it'll add it to my shopping list, and it's on my phone. And then I can just enter it in later that they bought it, take out that gold, and give them the card the next day.
That's super cool.
So it's pretty fun if you have anything like that.
Dang. Now I'm gonna mute you because your powers seem unstoppable. All right, anybody else want to answer? All right, Diane, let's see. Here you go.
All right. One thing that I found that I really kind of like, I have my website that has all my powers, and I have the common powers and the uncommon powers. And I kind of let them know, like today I tell them, okay, everyone who's leveled up and I've got my list will be getting a power tomorrow. Those who actually go onto the website and pick their power can pick them. If they don't send that initiative out, they just get a random, and they might get, bathroom break instead of something more powerful. So I want them to interact with the game. So that's kind of my push to get them to do that.
Nice. All right, Stephanie.
My horrible color again. Sorry about that. I just wanted to throw in, I really like associating certain items with side quests. So I teach lit in 8th grade, but we do a lot of connections with real world stories. So we were reading The Giver, and if you're not familiar with it, you really delve into communism and utopias. And one of the side quests I made was they had to go and research a communist country, pick a law, and make a Lego build to represent that law, and then do a Flipgrid response on it to teach us about it. But the item that they got for it was a love potion, because when you're in a communist country, you all love each other, right? Like everybody's equal, and the love potion allows them to, if they roll a certain number, they can convince the other group to give up their turn or give up the Lego piece that they really want, something like that. So I really like tying in the items with the side quests that have some connection. So
That's nice. You're good.
So for me, similar to what Stephanie was saying, I do connect them to my side quests, because part of my reasoning there is that then if they didn't necessarily complete it, or if they didn't hit everything, then they cannot get it. So it forces them to go back and complete it to whatever standard I set in order to get the power. So that's, I mean, I like connecting them to whatever it is, so that it's like kind of like almost mandatory that you have to complete it to a certain standard, and you cannot just be like, oh, well, you know what, I started there, but then I decided to go over here. So.
Nice. All right. I'll get you next, Adam.
All right, one other thing just really quick that I thought of that I do is those last few minutes at the end of a class that you don't have that often, but sometimes you do. I'll have a power like up on my board, and they know if they get all their work done and we get those last few minutes, I'll auction them off, which everyone has to obviously do good work, but that's kind of been something fun. I put one of the uncommon powers up there, and they know that at some point, they don't know when, there'll be an auction for that as well. So that sometimes I just give powers out just that way. They still have to do something because they have to have earned their gold, but it gives them an opportunity to interact again with the game.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, I like that idea. One thing that we do is in our game, we have a lot of things that are tied to Easter eggs. And we have a legacy Easter egg that has a promo that's based on the unit that we studied at that point. Our first one was energy, so they get the energy converter, which allows them to convert common cards into rares, and then if they have enough rares, they can convert it into a rare of their choice. We did a side quest that had, they could make a Christmas ornament, and we had a Christmas like promo card that they could only use the week before Christmas to get a candy cane or a day where we made hot chocolate. And so we found that tying those things together was pretty cool too. So, yeah.
For me, I guess my answer is no. I don't like typically pair things to a quest. I have a few that are paired because, like Stephanie was saying, the theme just goes so well with like this assignment, this task. But for the most part, I have like a binder full of all the items I've created. And when a kid comes up with a quest, I usually have them bring their binder with me. And I try to like geek out with them a little bit, you know, like, oh, like, what do you need? What do you have? Like, right. Like I try to make it this kind of big to do, kind of getting excited about the cards, and then give them what I think fits their quest, like how well their quest was. Slash, it's also a way for me to make sure the game's balanced and interesting. So if I feel like this kid needs to catch up, I might give them like a mega item that like on their next quest, it's worth like an additional 1,000 points or whatever. Like, boom, that gets that guy to do another quest. And then like you talk to him like, oh, this is super awesome. Like this one's going to up your XP value on the next quest. And you'll still earn an item for that next quest as well. So it's like, oh, like then they go home and do that quest. Or it's a chance for me if I felt like a kid finally sort of set foot in my game, I might give them an item I've never given out to anybody else. And then you kind of build them up. You're like, oh, this is like, you're the first one to get this. And then all these other kids huddle around them. And then this kid who was sort of not into the game now is the center of attention. So like, I like the freedom of not having some sort of set distribution method. Noah here.
Okay, so what you said reminded me of a problem that what you said about giving like new students in the game a better item or distributing XP in general. A lot of kids, you know, the quiet, the kids that do all the work, like the see-through kids, right? That they don't do anything extra, but they're not, you don't need like behavior management for them. So how, when they see someone else get get more like coin or XP or something because I want to reward him for something that he did. They get upset because, you know, they've been doing this the whole time and they didn't get the XP or the item or whatever. So how do you manage that in your classroom? This is like my piggyback question for what you said.
I think obviously as game designers, we all have to be careful on making sure the game feels fair and approachable by all. But I also kind of at great length discuss with my students that, you know, like I really talk a lot and directly, I use this example directly with my students, the whole Mario Kart effect, that like fairness isn't going to rest in just completion of tasks or whatever. Mario Kart constantly is cheating for the lower player. And what it does is it makes a more competitive race and a more fun race for everyone. Like even the first player can be proud of being first player because the game was cheating for all of us and you're still the first player. That's amazing. So I talked to him about that, and I really try to weave in as much as I can that like I promise I'm being as fair as I can. I'm doing everything I'm doing for you guys, and that you'll never, I mean, you just kind of have to trust kids. Like you'll never understand or see what I see. Like I get the full view of everything, all my other sections and classes. So even Noah, like if you think you're doing the best in my class, you may be actually like the best in this of my 5 classes, but this could be my lowest class. Like, so no student's ever going to get the full view, and you just have to trust that the system lies in the fairness of what I'm trying to do here. I have never had anything like really blow up in my face on that. I think I would be telling you a lie if I don't think that. I'm sure there are some students that wish I didn't do this or that, but it's never turned into, I think, a big problem or one that I've seen some kid go from highly engaged to all of a sudden like disengaged. I've never seen that flip around like that. Okay.
Okay, so excellent reference, the Mario Kart. And what it reminded me is this is an opportunity to talk with them about equality and equity. So I think that's a really like hard concept to grasp. So I think that's a really good, like, I think it fits well if I understand the translation of equality and equity.
Yeah.
And also maybe the Israeli kids are much more like this, what do you call it? Like they have more discipline problems. We're very loud.
Maybe I can't answer, but it sounds like you're on the pulse of that. So Jennifer, you have your hand up here.
Hey, so for my game, I do individual powers and I do group powers. But what I've noticed is the kids, the quiet kids, they're actually more sneaky when it comes in the game. I have a power called the Dragon Power, which they have a week to use, and they'll usually wait to the last minute. Like we get out at noon on Friday, and they'll wait till 11:58 or 11:59 to use it. Because then I have like a gamer power, which can revoke any other decision in the game, and they'll wait until the last possible minute so the gamer power can't get used. So I found like my quiet kids, they're very sneaky about using it because no one expects them. So I go by expect the unexpected in my game, and anything can happen. And on the weekend, I will on Google Classroom send them everything that's happened. As far as after Friday, they'll get like an update. Okay, this happened. Oh, you lost half your XP.
Oh, wow. Nice. Anybody else want to comment on sort of distribution of items before we move on? No? All right. Jennifer, I gotta say that sounds like a sweet item. Like, that's awesome. Then we have have any of you guys used breakout boxes, but the question sort of specifically tailored to like weaving it inside your greater game. So not just doing a kind of one-off breakout box, but have any of you tailored the breakout box to your game? I'm looking at you, Nick Davis. I'm just going to unmute you right now.
Yes.
He's out of the box, guys. He's out of the box.
So the breakout box in my game is in front of the classroom through the entire year. And they have to try to break into that box in order to, but the divergent in the class is the only one that can touch the box. So they have to figure out who the divergent is, get them to open the box before the countdown timer on my website turns 0. So they're kind of racing against time.
How do they figure out who the divergent is?
Yeah, so it's this year-long adventure quest.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So I'll give out clues. You know, if I'll just pick a random quest. Oh, this is a divergent clue. Here's a clue. And then I just keep it going all year. So trying to figure out as many clues as possible throughout the whole year. And they love it. I mean, I've had one class that has found out who the divergent was. But it was like, literally, it was about 5 minutes too late because it was the year was ending, and so they were not able to open the box.
No.
Yeah. So it just counts down 0, and they're like looking up at the screen.
You're
and
telling me a year-long like mystery, like Da Vinci Code, came down to 5 minutes too late?
Yeah. Yep.
You're a heartbreaker, Nick. You're a heartbreaker.
I know.
Anybody else use a breakout box? Okay, we got.
I don't use a breakout box, but I do digital breakouts, and I weave my theme into that. They're mostly kind of a review or sometimes an intro to a pop subject, but we're a Google's app campus, and so I set up digital breakouts on the Google website. I actually put in Be Impressed because it was a stretch for me to present on this at Spark. We'll see if it works. But I do digital breakouts and embed my game into that, and they earn XP by breaking out first and solving different things along the way. So it's not as impressive as his, it's not all year long, but that's how I do it. And I like the digital because they can do it in small groups, and it's kind of keeps the competition. They do it in their guilds, and it keeps the competition going.
Nice. I like that. I have used a breakout a few times. I've done it both ways. Done like the generic one-off, and I've done woven into my game. Woven into the game, if you can do it, I'd suggest all of you do it because it just amps it up, right? Like they already care about this game, and so then to like weave it in where you got that theme that they're actually part of, it just amps the whole experience up. So, anybody else?
Okay, so something we're trying. We are introducing unicorn power-ups into our game. The first of which, of course, has to be the Infinity Gauntlet. Yay,
of course,
comics. But we were trying to figure out a way so that it was fair, because every element that we have used so far, there are kids that are in our school. We have a lot of haves and have-nots, and you know, the kid that has the internet and their own iPad and their own everything versus the kid who doesn't have anything. And we're trying to figure out, we try to figure out a way to compete for that, but make it fair. And one of the things that we're going to do is do a digital thing with the locks that are in place, and we're trying to figure out exactly how to make it happen during school hours so that kids can only access it when they're at school, which is a difficult concept, but we're working on it. But we figured it was the most fair way to let kids kind of tinker with that and, figure it out. So
that's awesome. Anybody else with their hand up on breakout? I'm going to assume Ron's not raising his hand. Just talking with his hands. All right. So next question we have. Susan Hathorn asks, I'm doing PD on gamification, game-based learning in February. What are some of your favorite one-time games, 10 minutes to an hour, that teachers could go back to their classrooms and the next day use? What a solid question. Uh-oh, Jacob just fell over. And silence falls over the crowd. Don't blame my powers of muting you. I see no hands up. Oh, I got a hand. Unmute. There you go.
I don't have an answer, but I think something lost in translation. So could you repeat, please? That's the thing I wanted to ask.
The question is,
sorry.
So this person's going to run like a teacher training, and she wants to know what could she share with those teachers that are like a great example of small gamification that you could just use as like a one-day activity that could get people excited about the larger gamification that we all do.
Okay, so I have an idea. I would like to hear your thoughts because I'm always also trying to do that stuff in Israel, have workshops for principals and teachers that want to get into gamification, game-based learning. So I think as we do with the kids, the most important thing is to start like thinking about a theme and have your whole like 3-hour meeting or a day or whatever, all connected to that theme, and do a game-based learning like RPG on your teacher training. Same as you do with the kids, have them get XP and coin and health points. And it's only going to be 3 hours, but they'll get the feeling of how it feels to be immersed in learning. And that's what we want to achieve, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think, and maybe I misunderstood the question, but I actually think if someone's looking for small ways to dip in, then I recommend going like mini games because they're really easy to incorporate. They can be learned quickly. You can set up a system that you can use repeatedly. Sorry, hand talking. I just think that mini games make it so much easier to break into it and then sustain it and let others that maybe are scared about it try it and kind of dip their feet in without having to invest too much in the initial interaction with it. That's just my thoughts on it.
That's good. Carrie, with your hand up.
So I know Nick and I have talked about this before, but I think even just, I mean, I love mini games. Totally agree. It's like I feel like mini games are the gateway drug to gamification. You know, once you get them hooked, then you just got to wait for the rest to happen. But I also think like teaching people to think like gamers. So I know Nick's done it, and because I got the idea from him, is like giving teachers a box of items and teaching them how to think like gamers and develop games out of nothing. Because I think that's where my best mini games come from, like throwing things at a board or sliding paper on a table to earn points. So taking time, and I don't even think it takes very long to teach teachers how to think like gamers or take nothing and turn it into a game. That's where I think then the switch starts to flip, and that's when anything can become a 10-minute game.
Yeah. Okay, Noah.
Okay, so what I'm working on, and I consult with you guys a lot, so thank you. I'm working on doing a gamification theme and narrative and all kinds of, the rewards and all. That could be generic, and then teachers could like plant their assignments and their tasks in the game, because teachers, at least in Israel, we don't have time, and not a lot of people take the effort to develop their lessons and do like professional development and all that, because the workload is like tremendous. So if I can design a role-playing game that other teachers could use and just switch the tasks, that would be that's my goal, and maybe like sell it to schools and principals and you know, districts and all that. So this is my plan, working on it.
That's a tough goal, but like a worthy pursuit. So piggybacking on sort of Stephanie's and Carrie's, I think the idea of a mini game is really good. I think it is the easiest. I sometimes suggest to grab mini mechanics that you see from these like television shows, right? So you're watching some cooking show. I think there's a lot of things you could just sort of do for a one-off activity that you'd see sort of that palpable change in your classroom as kids get kind of amped up when only, you know, like their team has to like run back and forth or something like that to grab pieces or whatever. I think that would be a good one-day kind of activity. Maria.
So, as you were just saying that, when you said cooking show, I have this that I do with my kids at the beginning of the school year that could be a little bit more gamified, but where there's like a build challenge centered around Chopped. So they have a pack of stuff, and then they just is like, okay, you have to take those items and build something, and you can gamify that, adding rules to it or adding XP for the most creative or something like that. And so you have that experience, and it's a build challenge, so it doesn't take very long.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of what happened last week. My co-teacher and I were doing this elective class, and we were going to do this kind of neat. It's around the Cold War between America and the Soviets, and there are two teams, obviously, and we were going to do this rocket challenge with these balloons, and they would have to develop this rocket. And about 5 minutes before we were going to have this class, the nurse came in, because we were emailing people like, does anybody have some balloons we can use? And the nurse was like, you can't use balloons. Like, people are allergic to latex. And we're like, crap! Like, we have like 35 kids coming in like a few minutes. What are we going to do? And so I grabbed my bin of, like, I just have this bin full of random junk, brought it down to the classroom and chucked a bunch of random stuff at both teams. And we just on the spot made up this silly build challenge with like 0 rules. We just said we broke each team up into 3 teams. Somebody had to build an engine. Somebody had to build a pressurized cabin. Somebody else had to build a guidance system for the rocket, with no explanation how to do that with just this random junk. And we said, like, you just have to use your imagination, but in the end, so help us God, you have to like explain it like it's real. And like, they did it. And like you said, they had a great time, and it was like, and what they came up with was unbelievable. And they were all like, this is great. And like, my co-teacher and I are like, guess we got to write this one down for next year. This one really worked out.
And I put in there just, for anybody that wants it, but the Institute of Play's Games and Learning, that actually talks about how to think like game designers, and it literally walks teachers really through the whole process. But it's a PDF that they have for teaching teachers how to create games. So it's up there, just if anybody.
That's awesome. Anybody hand up here? No? All right. Well, it's already 10. That's crazy. I'm going to unmute all of you.
We're free. We're free.
I can breathe.
Breathe.
What did you guys think? Was the first one of these work all right?
That was fun.
It's cool.
Yeah,
I liked it.
I liked it.
Appreciate you.
That's awesome. So
nice
much
seeing
learning.
Yeah, it's nice seeing everybody's face and personality and
The faces to the names. It's very nice.
It is nice.
I would say that's the best part, because a lot of you I know by handle, And I mean, and whatever avatar you have, it's like, I don't know.
Right.
Oh, it's nice. I really appreciate it. I think it went well.